Okay, Teresa.
I'm ready. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to welcome everyone to Let's Life at the Table. Let's talk. We have Dr. Donna Ossorio, and we're going to ask Minister Katrina just give us a little introduction for her, please.
Wonderful. Yes, we have the awesome Dr. Donna Ossorio with us this afternoon on Life at the Table. Take a seat, let's talk. And I want to read just a little bit of her bio. And Dr. Donna Ossorio currently holds the position of Assistant Professor in Social Justice and Criminology. She earned her PhD in Criminal Justice from is at Prairie View A&M University in 2019. Dr. Osorio's primary research interests include foster care, juvenile justice, mental health, and juvenile corrections. Her primary interest is in policy analysis and program evaluations. Prior to entering the PhD program, she served 9 years in the U.S. Army and over 20 years as a business owner in the healthcare industry. At this time, we have Dr. Donna Ossorio with us today.
Welcome, Dr. Donna Ossorio. Welcome to the table.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I think I'll go ahead and get started. I guess you want me to go ahead and move right in. I know that's not going to be long. So the students who are on board, thank you so much for joining in. I'm so proud of you. I do have your name, so kind of stay by. This won't be a long session. So right at the end of the session, I'll go ahead and do a quick attendance and so that you can get credit for this time. So thank you, because it is a Sunday. So I truly appreciate you. Well, one of my biggest things, my passion is juvenile delinquency. And for some of the students who don't know, I actually am a foster care kin. I do kin care on a great niece. And it happens where her mother ended up getting into some trouble and no one wanted to step in. So I had to, I didn't have to, but my husband and I decided that it was best for us to grab the baby instead of allowing the child to go into the foster care system. Because we know that once you get into that system, it's very difficult to get that child back out. And so dealing with that child, she was about 4, there was a lot of, even at that time, biological and psychological things that we had to deal with to get this child where she is today. She'll be turning 11 on November 5th. So it's been not only a research, but personal for me. Delinquency is a serious issue that we have in the United States, and it comes in all kind of forms, right? We have issues with, children that's in a social disorganized environment. And some of my students, we actually just went through an assignment where I emphasized that if you don't understand theory, then we cannot do evidence-based practices and policies to make the system better. United States of America have formed a lot of our legislation and what we've done and what we do based on British legislation and thought process and philosophies. We brought that in, and we have adopted a lot of those policies, but it's not what we would call effective policy. We have the parents' cadre that says, the state would do a better job taking care of a child than parents. And we realize that it has failed in many, many instances. The state cannot do a better job. It doesn't do a better job, but that's the best that we have, right? If a child is being neglected or abused. And to say that it's a weird process is that we confuse neglect and poverty. And so when we look at the amount of children who are being pulled out of their homes because of neglect, which is the biggest, when we look at statistical analysis from the AFCARS, which is information that's pulled in from all the different states, the different child welfare states, neglect is #1 on the list. And so when you're trying to define neglect, there's a lot of ambiguity in that. And so when a person comes in, a social worker comes into a home and find that there's no food, no beds, maybe infested with different type of insects, they tend to pull the child out and forget the mother is not eating either. The mother is not sleeping on a nice, bed either. So instead of taking the child away and creating more stress, let's find different social entities, resources where we can support that mother. Because then what happens is you pull that child out, and then here we go, moving the child from one place to the other, because the child don't want to be away from their mother. And even children who are abused have this loyalty toward their parents that they don't want to, just let me stay there, we can work it out. So we have that problem. And then, of course, unfortunately, we have the disproportionality of minorities. I actually sit on the board in Texas, appointed by the commissioner, where we're trying to do our best by getting children who are minorities, Black and brown children, adopted or placed in a family. So, and the reason why I went there is because they're considered a vulnerable population when we're dealing with delinquency, because these children have a high propensity to move into delinquency and into adult criminality. And this vulnerable population, it just seems that they're just getting left behind on a continuous basis. So what I am doing, I do a lot of research in trying to promote policies where we're looking at it from a different way. We already know the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, we're continuing being insane in some aspects in the child welfare system. Delinquency, again, it does pull from so many different components. We know that if you live in a home that's dysfunctional, there's a high probability that you're going to have a lot of those psychological or biological components that's going to move into your adult lives. We know sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is a different type of abuse, and people don't like to talk about it because they go, oh, that sounds really icky and weird, but we have to deal with the issue. And some children have experienced this, and in some of my, I don't know if you guys can chat. I think Minister Katrina can probably read your chats, because I want you to chat in a question and then I'll come back to it. A lot of children who are sexually abused, it's different than physical abuse. It's gross. It's the most egregious type of abuse also. But there's something that happens with children who are sexually abused, because it almost makes them feel like they're the reason and why it's taking place, right? And then there is this different type of feeling that's taking place. So if someone is sexually abused and there is this feeling of, well, I know it's wrong, but at the same time, it feels right, we have to let that child know, hey, you have been manipulated. It's not your fault. Because children will say they allow this person to come back and never say anything. Then they hold this guilt inside of them. And then moving into what we would call an adult relationship, you carry all of those burdens and misconceptions of what a relationship is into this relationship, and trust is already broken. So we have to really deal with it and deal with it straight, shoot straight as an arrow. Physical abuse, we know it's physical abuse, and it can create what we call internal or external effects. Internal, mostly for females, they'll be depressed or things to that effect, or they'll drink or they'll smoke. Males tend to be more violent. Now, females will be violent too, but males tend to exhibit violence more than females do. And so now we got to deal with that component. One of the problems we have when it comes to the family, and I think majority of my students, we talked about this before, is that Americans, we're a very individualized society. You can't come in here and tell me what to do with my family. What happens in my house stays in my house, and you stay over there. So if Dr. Ossorio went and did a lot of research and knows some evidence-based practices to help families become better, it's difficult because families don't want you in their home, even though they know they have a problem. And so that's where we're facing a lot of issues, is actually seeing, okay, we have a lot of different programs that can help families, but people are so afraid. They're afraid to say, you know what, every time I turn around, I'm ready to slap my child in the head. we have to let we have to let parents be honest and not use taking the child away as a mean of solving the problem. We got to say, okay, you get angry, let's figure out some ways to help you so, it'll be more productive. Because what happens is parents are not thinking how this is going to impact their child as their child begins to grow. Social disorganization theory. I know some of my students know about this, and then I'll let you guys ask questions, Teresa, because I really don't know if y'all just want me to talk. I could talk about this stuff all day.
No, I'm going to ask a question. I'm trying to give you a chance to finish talking.
Okay. Social disorganization theory is a theory that we use and has been it's been coined by Sean McKay. These are the theorists who coined this term. Is really based on lower social economic status, environments that have high mobility, have a high rate of single parent household. They have a higher stats and obtaining welfare or government assistance and things to that effect. And so what we realize, of course, is that in an environment where poverty is running rampant, there is a propensity for delinquency, gangs. Hey, if I'm gonna survive, because I grew up in Baton Rouge, and no, it's not Los Angeles or Chicago, but they had the same components, right? If you belonged in a gang and you was part of the environment, you knew you was protected. I was from Fairfield, so if you was from Fairfield, you better not mess with me, right? But there was a sense of family. There was a sense of someone has my back, and we see how people will move into a gang relationship. Drugs, people feel like that strain theory, the American dream. I want to have the tennis shoes or the clothes, or they may even be helping mom pay rent and pay the light bills. And so if they've been incarcerated, and so there's so many different things, but if they've been incarcerated and then they're trying to make a living, there is different things that is against them. And so what they do is they turn to drug, and that recidivism rate is high, because once you have a felon on your record, it's very difficult to get loans, to get help for schools and things to that effect. So we're looking at delinquency, but we're looking at the kids and we say, you're bad kids. But what I wanted to do in that brief short time is to let you know that there is so many different components, from being in the home, from being in the community, that impacts. And then we can move right into the school to prison pipeline. When we brought in resource officers, the resource officers were, instead of saying, hey, you're going to have in-school detention, we were taking kids to jail at an enormous amount. The rate was really high based on a fight. Now, I remember when I was growing up, of course, it was in the 60s, but when I was growing up, one of the things we did is the principal took care of it, or the coach. So you got a hit on your butt, and your parents got called. And the worst thing is to call my mom. Please don't call my mom, and do whatever you do, just don't call my mom. But now with the resource officers, the teachers don't have time. They go and they take the children out, and then here they're labeled. Some people say that in a certain neighborhood, to go to juvenile is like a rite of passage. Like, yeah, I saw cousin Bobo sitting up in there. Yeah, we was just like, hey, what's going on, and giving each other dap. But they realize that this is what they have to do to assimilate into their communities as someone that's, deemed to be maybe afraid of, or, he's down, he's one of us. But it's a really bad thing, because when it comes to moving to the next level and ingressing out of the criminality power, it seems to grasp them in there, and they don't know how to let go. So delinquency is serious, and how we deal with it, and understanding theory. And I always express to my students, theory is important. If you don't know theory, then you don't understand the question why. Theory is about why is it happening, and what can we do to solve that problem.
I have a question, Dr. Ossorio. So what are some of the things that we can do as a community to help our youth to not to get in those kind of situation, that we can help them to understand, like you said, it's not their fault that they was brought in this kind of situation, but how can we help them to turn things around for them?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. The first thing is, it's amazing how before you can go and get a house or a car or a cell phone, you have to be credit worthy. So when we get material things, they run your credit, boy. They make sure that you got it, you got what it takes to pay for something. But when it comes to us having children, everybody just kind of pull back. I really believe it's going to start right there in that labor and delivery room. As soon as that baby's out, we're handling informative information on parenting. If you're having any problems, if you're feeling stressed, if you lose your job, we have to equip parents with all the necessary tools they need to be successful. And it starts there because we assume that as parents, we know everything. I have 5 kids and my oldest is 32. And I promise you, I did not know everything. I had all the parenting magazines. I didn't know, like in the beginning, like when I'm angry or frustrated, how do I suppose, how do you do this, learning how to say I'm sorry. And also learning how, as they're transitioning from age to age, there is a shift in our relationship, right, as a parent. Not only that, having the materials in the labor and delivery room, talking to the parents before they leave. Also, there is an organization called Hands that's in Kentucky that's doing this evidence-based practice. And what they're doing is they're following the parents up until they're 5 years old, to those who they feel are vulnerable and need that assistance. And they even assist the father in finding jobs. And it's really working out really great where they're seeing delinquency rate drop. But not only that, children moving into the social welfare program has decreased. And so we know that those programs work. Another thing is those things we used to do in the day where we had boys and girls clubs, where we had officers right there with us, helping us, playing basketball, talking with us. The problem that we have with that is that it's a mentorship that's very important in improving who I am. But then I go home and they're not at home with me. And so that's why I'm seeing a lot of the focus has to be parenting. How do you do this? If you feel in a certain way, maybe you feel like you want to start using drugs and alcohol. We're going to take the kids, but what we're going to do is while we're getting you some help, rehab, we're going to be having this relationship where the kids and the society is helping you through the process. Instead, we rip the children away and the parents just go down. It's like a downward spiral.
Okay.
So we're going to have to do a better job really giving parents more resources up front when they have, and then we have to let the children get resources. Children will not just go to a school, a teacher and say, you know what, my mom is drinking all night. It's very, because they feel like the loyalty has been snipped. But we do need to let parents know when you have a problem, don't be afraid. We're here to help you. Parents will not reach out to social workers because they feel like if they do, their children will be taken away. We're going to have to change that.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Minister Katrina, you got a question? She got me on mute. So when a child go into the system, Dr. Ossorio, what is their chances of being, once they go into the system, what is their chances when they come out of the system? How successful will they be?
Yeah, it varies. It varies about the reason why they were taken from the first part. Then, the parents have parenting classes they can do if they really, they have certain steps to take when they want to get their child back. And it is a process. And then, of course, the courts. People think child welfare makes all the decision, but really the family court is the one that makes the decision. A lot of times if a parent is, the child is pulled away for sexual abuse or something to that effect, it's very difficult to place that child back into that home, even with counseling. Parents that are neglect, getting a job, getting a nice place to stay, and then making sure, they have the resources necessary, which again, I say should be done up front instead of taking the kids. We could do it together collectively. They do have opportunities to do that. The problem is if they get into the system, and then they move around. We call it just, there's a placement instability. And in that placement instability, they're just moving from place to place because, they may get to a home and they say, I can't deal with Donna Ossorio. She needs to go somewhere else. She got attitude. I already have 5 kids in the house. So what happens to that child mentally is that they begin to feel like, they don't belong. Why am I here? And then they begin to act out. So you can't really just say one child will act, become this way when they come out. It's just based on the circumstances on why they were removed and also the type of help they are receiving. Another thing that's taking place in the in the child welfare system is that counseling is imperative. And so, it has to be one of those things that are recommended, required for children, because you have to understand as a child and you're first facing maybe neglect or abuse, then you get pulled out and then you're moving from place to place. You're angry and you wonder, what am I here for? Why am I here? What is this all about? So counseling is very imperative. And I think in a lot of states, they are pushing that. They need to push it as a requirement. If you're going to get federal government funds for a child, then it should be required that that child receives some type of counseling.
Wonderful.
I have a question, Dr. Ossorio.
Who am I speaking with?
Latia Sykes.
Yes, ma'am.
When we provide the resources to parents, and what do we do when parents don't want the resources, or you give them the resources and they refuse the resources? Like, you try to prevent the kids from being taken, or, you want parents to express their feelings and you try to give them all that they need, but they won't do it or just refuse. Then what do we do then?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And like I said, some parents, like I said, if what goes in my house is in my house, you stay out. Then they have that attitude. And you know what? There's nothing too much you can do. So when they don't take that resource and they don't want, then we're going to have to do our best. And that's one of the things that I do. I'm trying to go from state to state to try to put this program together about kinship care, or care where these children can be somewhere that they truly can be taken care of. One of the things that myself and Minister Teresa talked about a lot is that there are so many children we call unwanted children. And they sit up in these different type of categories. And it's amazing that not every single time a person has a child, they really want that child, right? There's a lot of reasons why people have children. I've heard women tell me, well, the only reason why I had the child was because, I wanted to get this man. And then he left, she got mad at the man and the child. Every time she sees the child, she hits the child because the child reminds her of this man and how he treated her. So we look at certain things. And men, it's amazing how even in relationships and marriage relationships, I've seen where women go to their husbands and go, guess what, baby? Guess what? I'm pregnant. And he's like, really? Like, are you kidding me? But he doesn't want to do that because people assume just because you're married that you're supposed to have children. Well, did you talk about it? Did you discuss, hey baby, you know what, let's decide to have 2 kids. Now we know things happen, especially, you're in a relationship. We know there's a tendency of things, there's a probability of something happening. But a lot of times, I noticed where men begin to push back because they were like, I really didn't want any kids. I thought we were going to wait 5 or 6 years before we have kids. So I think that's another thing too with the education. We know there's a lot of single moms, and we know that sometimes it happens even when everything was planned and things to that effect. But then there are those people who just was not ready, for a child. And if you give me resources and I have a child and you give me the resources and I refuse to, you want to give me all the resources and I refuse to take it, that child is in trouble. That child is in trouble. And yes, the child welfare system is an awesome experience. I'm saying I'm not going to say it's awesome. Let me retract. The child welfare system is there and I'm glad it's there because it has taken children out and have placed them in a situation that is much better than where they were. Let me put it that way. So it's not ideal, but it is there. But yeah, those are those parents who are not willing to talk. Even the parents that we try to go into that's doing like physical abuse, we'll tell them things like, you know, hey, here is some training. Let's go through anger management, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, then we'll start doing some supervisory visits. Then after that, then we'll just kind of, you know, slowly but surely try to, you know, bring the child back in. They won't do it. They won't do it. They feel like they don't have a problem. So you're right. When it comes to things like that, there are some things that we just have to have the system for. And that's another thing what we talked about is kinship care. I'm gonna move right into it. Kinship care is very difficult because I'm a kinship care. You know, I take care of my great niece. One of the most difficult things being a kin care is because of the relationship that she had with her mother. I had to kind of sever that relationship for a while until the mother get it together. And the reason is because I have to protect this child emotionally and psychologically, right? And so if I have this mother that's just, you know, she's going through whatever she's going through, it impinges on this child's psyche and she can't function. We tried doing it at first, but then we noticed the child would be down and depressed and thinking, okay, why am I with you? But then she's having another child and that child is with their mother. She start feeling rejected. And so we realized those components and talking to social workers and other experts, we decided that right now we need to let her grow up and be the child that she can be. And then when time comes, you know, we can try to, you know, bring them back. And we'll look at it from different standpoints. We look at it and readdress it, but that causes me not to have any certain functionings. I can't go to certain functions like funerals, or if I do, I have to go by myself, or weddings and things like that because of what has been placed by the courts. So kinship care can be very, very daunting. You know, it can work on you, but you know that you're doing something good. And then if you're a mother, I'm an aunt, but if you're a grandmother or a grandfather and your daughter is coming to your house, you know, you have to like keep them away. So even dealing with kinship care, it's been very, it's been one of those topics that's been very, very tough, but we have counseling and we do work with those kinship care to let them know that you can make it through. But at the bottom line is what's best for this child.
Wonderful. Do anyone have any more questions for Dr. Ossorio?
Dr. Ossorio, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Katrina. I have a question. So going back, I was actually trying to we're on Facebook Live, guys, so that was why I was not able to tune in earlier when Minister Johnson asked me the question about asking a question. But I do have a question when it comes to social justice and going in with the families and making those adjustments. Do you see that they take the children out of the home for a minute, or do they continue to leave them in the home until the proper adjustments or corrections are made?
So it's according to how bad it is. Yeah, it varies, but you're right. If it's something where, you know, they come in and they see that your children don't have any food or clothes and they're not being, you know, abused or anything, then, you know, they go get resources. We try to find resources. We reach out to churches and different organizations to go, okay, let's get some beds in here, let's get them some food, and let's figure out what we can do to help this person get a job. You know, maybe we have to do some job training, things like that. Now, one of the things that is really hot in Texas is that child support, you know, they don't play. So, you know, they're out looking for the father, but a lot of times, you know, they don't even have any money. So, but that's one of the things they do. But they really try to help the mother or the father, because mothers are not just the only ones that are single parents. We have some fathers who are single parents too. And so they do their job to really help the parents try to find get some training, find a job, and things to that effect. And the community comes together. When the community comes together and make it happen, it's just so awesome, right? We have the teachers, they understand the situations. We have the community leaders, you know, so if the parent is working, they can have this after school care where they can go in and do their homework, get fed their dinner, and things to that effect. So it varies, but there are some situations that are so severe that they do pull them out, try to give the parents some help. And while they're doing that, they'll tell the parents, okay, A through Z, this is what you have to do. If you really want to get your child back, come on, let's make this happen. We're going to work with you together. And like one of the students said, you know, sometimes they don't want the help, but then there are those who they'll get through it and they'll do whatever they have to do to make sure their children is there. Now, mental health issues are very serious and very hard to identify until after we remove the child. So you have a lot of parents, well, not a lot, I won't say that, but you do have some parents who are exhibiting mental health issues, and trying to get them the right help, you know, schizophrenia, paranoid. We have people with depression that just, they're detached from their child, and so they're not able to give their child the affection that they need. That plays a huge part on the child's development. And so, you know, recognizing that and saying, reach out to these communities. The documentation, you know, I really am pushing it to get it in every hospital, and not just in every hospital, in every child care facility. You know, if you run into these problems, if you're feeling some way, please call us. We want to help you and your children go to the next level. You know, don't be afraid that we're going to come in and take your children away. We want to give you the resources, because we understand that when that child is moved away from you, it's going to create additional stress, sometimes for the parent, but most definitely for the child.
Wonderful. We don't want to go too deep because Dr. Ossorio got another session with us at the end. The next one is end of the month, and we're going to be talking about adoption and going into a foster care. So we don't want to go too deep, but we do want to open up the lines to anyone that may have a question for her at this moment, because we want to get your feedback, because we don't want to just do the talk show. We are seeking for answers, because our community, our children are suffering. Our parents are suffering. We have to allow the parents and the children to know that we are here for them. And if we can help them to get out of the situation they may be in and help them to a better place in life, that's what we want to do.
Yeah. So Teresa, could you let the students know who you are and what you do? Because yes, if you don't mind.
Okay, my name is Teresa Johnson. I have a nonprofit organization called To Serve with Love. We deal with the homeless population. We deal with social justice, where a lot of children has been taken away from their parents because they homeless. A lot of children become homeless also because one of your students said most times they don't want help, and the mother knows she can't take care of them, but she don't want to let the children go. But we trying to help the parents to understand, because you in that situation don't mean you have to stay in that situation. All of the parents and all the people that we deal with are not drug addicts. They are not alcoholics. They done came up against hard times. Like Dr. Ossorio said, maybe they had a bad, record, and they can't get housing, different things. In North Carolina, the rules are really strict on how they the system here. If you got a bad record, it's hard to get an apartment, it's hard to get housing. Sometimes it's hard to even get a job. So our organization, try to help families and children. We are in the process now to open up a house called House of Rahab. And the House of Rahab is going to help families to get on their feet, help the children. We put them, partner with different daycare centers to be able to give them what they need to be successful when they leave our program. They stay in our program for at least 2 years. And in the 2 years in our program, we will give them all the training they need with their finances, how to budget money, how to build up their credit, all sorts of resources like Dr. Ossorio said. So when they do get back out there, they'll be able to function. And we will always do a follow-up with them after the fact. So we do a lot in the community. So that's what we do.
Thank you. And so that's one of the things we're going to do. I'm going to push, and I always look at my students who are master students, and they're already in the field working. Some of them are already working as in the social justice or working as probation officers or counselors. And the reason why I did invite you guys in, and even the ones who are undergrad, is as you decide to move into your careers, understand that it's not just about the dollar, it's what you can do to change your life. You have to pay it forward. And so one of the things that I'm doing, and if you guys decide even after our session or after our semester that you want to be involved, just let me know, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start getting out there and talking with the different hospital administrations, and we're going to go from state to state. I don't care if it takes us every single day. We're going to make it happen where we get those resources out there to let them know, here, this is what's there to help you, because a lot of times people don't even know where to reach out to. And again, like I said, if they feel like they're going to hurt their child, they're so scared to call someone to say, look, I feel like I'm about to take my child and strangle their neck. I mean, really, I'm about to just beat them. And, you know, they can call someone and say, look, I'm just feeling frustrated. Please come, you know, just come get them for like a minute or so. And we know there are people who try to abuse the system and things to that effect. But what we want to do is just make sure that we're there as a support system, because when you're worrying about paying your light bill, you're trying to put food in your children's mouth, you come home and you're dealing with issues at work, it can be very frustrating. So that's why we want to be there to say, look, we got your back. Let us know what we can do to help you. So that, you know, and a lot of times the stress, the reason why kids get beat, a lot of times is either, you know, parents are alcoholic or on drugs, or they just stressed out and don't know how to properly, you know, discipline their children. Any questions, any of the students?
I have a question.
What's your name?
This is Anna.
Okay, Anna.
Okay, so I know for like young women and young men, there's a difference in between them being involved in crime. So what would be your opinion of how to treat young women? Because sometimes they act out because of the victimization they've experienced in their lives. What do you think would be the best way to help them in particular?
Man, Miss Anna, let me tell you, straight up counseling, they need it. Because, you know, if you look at women who are running young for a reason. My daughter, well, you're not going out today because you didn't get your homework done. Oh, mom, you know, she'll have her fit. She'll go upstairs because she understands deep inside mom's right. She may not agree with me at the time. But think about those girls who are getting sexually abused and molested. It is amazing, the statistics on girls who are being sexually molested at home. We talk about stranger danger. No, we don't need to be talking about stranger danger. We need to be talking about danger in the house.
Yes,
because majority of the children who are sexually molested, girls and boys, are at home with someone that they know of, a cousin, an uncle, a father. Even we can't dismiss mothers and aunts and sisters and siblings. So this is a problem that we have. And then abuse, physical abuse. And girls tend to definitely internalize it. So drugs, alcohol, you know, but they're starting to get violent too. And I think some of you seen some of the videos that we just put out, I think last week. If you go in and you do an analysis and you do a survey of the type of things that happen to them, you know, I believe at least 8 out of the 10 would tell you that they had some type of sexual abuse. The sexual abuse, the stats on it is high. And guess when we find out? When they get into the juvenile system. We start finding out that they were abused by boyfriends and things like that. So for girls, you know what? And a lot of times they just won't talk about it. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Satoya Brown long story. She was sexually abused by so many men, and then she had this man that pimped her out, and she ended up killing a guy. But the reason why she left home was because of the abuse. And yet we were going to put her in jail for the rest of her life. But the mitigating circumstances behind the reasoning, the courts don't really look at that. Even though with juvenile courts, we try to bring in the mitigating circumstances and try to do it from a rehabilitative standpoint, but we're missing it because we just kind of dismiss the mitigating circumstances. But what they're doing now is getting that information when they're doing the intake, so they'll know exactly how to address those issues. Yes, ma'am. But Ms. Anna, counseling for everybody, and even with us, even for those of us who, if you ever get into law enforcement, if you're already in law enforcement, those of us who are doing social boggling, mind-boggling, it'd be so depressing and so heart-wrenching that we need an out of the turnover rate is high. Correctional officers, the turnover rate is high. And people try to defund the police. No, we need to give the police more training. We need to give the police more counseling. We need to give the police more support to make sure that they're doing their jobs, because a lot of time they're carrying a load, and they're human beings. They have a badge. Yes, but they're human beings. They go home, they got kids, they got a spouse, they got to pay bills, and police officers don't make a lot of money. And we already know that, right? Because a lot of times they make a lot of money on the side. But that doesn't negate, brutality. It doesn't, but it does let us know that when we're in service to other people and it's always constantly draining, we need counseling. We need to be like, let it go, breathe, you got this. Because I remember as I was doing my research in foster care and delinquency, it was a moment where I was like, I don't know about this. I'm throwing in the towel. But then I realized the importance of it, and how these children truly need us. So yeah, counseling. And sometimes I think in certain ethnicities or races, they tend to look at counseling like, oh Lord, ain't nothing wrong with me, I'm not crazy. No, it's just helping us work out certain things and feelings that we may have, because I don't know about you, but we're human beings and we tend to bring our work home. It's hard to separate it. Some people say, keep that there at your office. You're human, you have emotions. And if you have empathy, you're really in trouble because you carry that with you. I'm sorry, I know we kind of went over a little bit longer than we expected, but.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wonderful. Any more questions?
We had a hand raised. I think it was Angelisa. Angelisa, did I say that correct?
You can ask questions.
Angelisa, are you there? She might have dropped. Oh, Angelisa.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead. You had a question?
No, I'm just giving you a little claps about you said that the police officer don't make money and we need counseling and stuff like that. I was just agreeing with you.
Yes, ma'am. So Miss Angelisa, she's actually a police officer in law enforcement. And so I am so proud because they're trying to take it to the next level. And I know that with this program, we're going to empower them. But one of the things we're going to be doing is actually getting out, talking to the chief of police and saying, you know what, if you're going to take some money, let's take some money and let's do that. Let's help our officers, and let's not, because when people see our officers, they're already giving them a dirty look. Like, look, I'm here to help you and protect you. Don't be giving me a hard time. And so we have to let the community know to embrace our law enforcement, because it's difficult, it's hard. And I remember getting the looks when I was in the military, like, what in the world, just we're here to support you, but we're in a different country, of course. So I'll go ahead and give it to them. They just probably didn't like Americans. But we have a job to do. And I really do think that we're going to have to do a better job in getting into the community and making a change. So if you guys know anyone out there and they need me to be there, I will, because I'm already knocking on the doors of the chiefs and things like that. And I'm setting up some things. I'm getting ready to send out a lot of emails to go ahead and meet with them and say, how can we change your program? How can we empower those who empower, you know, like our social workers, our police officers, you know, our probation officers. How do we empower them to be the best that they can be and bring us all together?
And everyone that's on the line, if y'all would love to come on the talk show, the officer Angelina, I would love for you to come on the talk show, even some of the students, just to get some feedback, because we are trying to reach, is so much hostility now going in the world. People are in fear, like Dr. Ossorio said, so much stuff going on. And so we can bring more young people to the table and allow them to express themselves and give them a voice and allow them to be empowered. And maybe that would change the paradigm of how people see things, because sometimes people see stuff different. Everybody sees stuff different. So I am so thankful for Dr. Ossorio coming on with us on Sunday, out of her busy schedule, and all of you all. I really appreciate it. Myself and Minister Katrina Reese, we are the co-hosts. And like I said, Dr. Ossorio will be back with us to talking about foster care and to adoption. And so we are looking forward to part 2 of our talk. And so if y'all don't have any more questions, we're going to let Dr. Ossorio finish enjoying her Sunday, and all of you guys. And we thank you from the bottom of our heart for coming and being a part of Life at the Table. Take a seat. Let's talk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ossorio.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming on board. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I do have your name. So okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.